First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Philippians, the first chapter, and along with the book of Ephesians. Right, this is also written, or the epistle of Ephesians, this is also written around the same time as Paul was under house arrest at Rome, and he's writing here to the Philippians. Now remember that the Philippians doesn't show it on this. Let me pull it up here. Paul's second. Okay, maybe I can find a good one again. Okay, this is not bad. Yep. There you go. Okay, so remember on Paul's second missionary journey, it was at Philippi that he exorcised that demon out of that woman, right? He met Lydda, I think of her name, or Lydia, and there was that woman who would bring her master's gain through divining, and she kept crying after them every time they would go to pray. That these are the men of God, these are the men of God, and he rebukes the demon out of her. So it's at Philippi where he's there along with Silas, right, and company. They ended up getting beat, right, and thrown in prison. At that point, they're able to preach onto the guard of the prison, right, the overseer of the prison, teach him and his family and everything and so on. Like that all happened at Philippi. So these are the Philippians, okay, that Paul is writing to in Philippians, the first chapter. Now, I just want to read just a bit of background that I have here. It's on my phone. See if I can pull it up on the book of Philippians before we go ahead and read it. So this is just some context on here. Okay, so it says here, concerning the Philippians, the city, it belonged to Thrace until 358 BC, when it was raised by Philip, king of Macedon, father of Alexander the Great. It was the place where Marcus Antonius, or Antonius, and Octavius defeated Brutus and Cassius. That was in 42 BC. This is just some background on the city itself, which defeat overthrew the Roman oligarchy, and Augustus was made emperor. It was on the great highway through which all trade, let me pull it up here. Actually here, there you go. So Philippi, right? So it says this was on the great highway which all trade and traders going eastward and westward must pass, and was therefore a fit center of evangelism for all Europe. It was a place where the first church of Europe was established by Paul on his second missionary journey. Paul's connection with the church by a vision from God, where he went from God, he went to Philippi on the second missionary journey. That's in Acts 16 and 9. He first preached at a woman's prayer meeting where Lydia was converted. She furnished him a home while he continued his work in the city. After some time, there arose great opposition to him, and he and Silas were beaten and put in prison. But through prayer, they were released by an earthquake, which also resulted in the conversion of the jailer. You can read all this in the book of Acts as well. This is Acts the 16th chapter. It's in. He perhaps visited them again on his journey from Ephesus to Macedonia. That's Acts the 20th chapter. He spent the Passover there and received messages from them. They also sent him assistance, and he wrote them this letter. That is the book of Philippians. It says here the character and purpose of the letter. It is an informal letter with no logical plan or doctrinal arguments. It is the spontaneous utterance of love and gratitude. It is a tender, warm hearted, loving friend and brother presenting the essential truths of the gospel in terms of friendly intercourse, not in, not in the other kind of intercourse. He found in them constant reasons for rejoicing. And now at Epaphroditus, who had brought their aid to him, because, like he was, in terms of money and those kinds of things, they aided him in that. So it says here, so Epaphroditus, who had brought their aid to him, was about to return from Rome to Philippi. He had an opportunity to send them a letter of thanks. It is remarkable for its tenderness. This is the church of Philippi. Warnings, or actually the letter of Philippians. It is remarkable for its tenderness, warnings, entreaties, and exhortations, and should be read often as a spiritual tonic. This was dated around the time where Paul was, it was written by Paul during his imprisonment at Rome. So this is around what, 62 AD approximately is where they have it here. So just a bit of background on the the letter of Philippians here. Now let's actually get into it. So this is Philippians chapter 1, verse 1. Paul and Timotheus, the servants of Yahushua Hamashiach, to all the saints in Hamashiach Yahushua, which are at Philippi, with the bishops and deacons. Grace be unto you and peace from God our Father and from the Lord Yahushua Hamashiach. I thank my God upon every remembrance of you. Meaning he's grateful, he's thankful to the Lord every time he thinks about them. Always in every prayer of mine for you all, making request with joy, for your fellowship in the gospel from the first day until now. Being confident in this very thing, that he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Yahushua Hamashiach. So he's saying, I'm confident. I fully believe that the Lord that has begun working, with this good work within you, right, putting the Spirit upon you for you to have such good and faithful works is going to keep on, keep you going until the day of the return of Yahushua. Even as it is meet for me to think, bring this off here. Even as it is meet for me to think this of you all, right? So he's saying like it's based on what you have done and the way you carry yourself. There's absolutely nothing wrong with me thinking like this about you because I have you in my heart. I constantly think about you in so much as both in my bonds and in the defense and confirmation of the gospel, ye all are partakers of my grace. So, as he's saying, while I was preaching, while I was defending the gospel, also while I'm here, in my bonds and this house arrest, you are partakers with me. For God is my record or my witness, how greatly I long after you all in the bowels of Hamashiach Yahushai, meaning he greatly desires to see them. And this I pray, that your love may abound yet more and more in knowledge and in all judgment, that ye may approve things that are excellent, that ye may be sincere and without offense till the day of Hamashiach. So he was praying that they're already good. They're on a good path, but they would continue, and maintain that sincerity of heart and that righteous path they were on till the return of the Lord. Being filled with the fruits of righteousness, which are by Yahushua Hamashiach, unto the glory and praise of God. See, so he's saying like you're filled with the fruits of righteousness. Your actions show forth the fruit of righteousness so much so that it's glorifying and a praise unto the Lord. But I would ye should understand, brethren, that the things which happened unto me have fallen out rather onto the furtherance of the gospel. So he's saying keep in mind, yes, I'm in these bonds, but it's okay. It happened this way for the gospel to be further spread, so that my bonds in Hamashiach are manifest in all the palace and in all other places. See, and let's go into that word palace, because Paul was in Rome at this point, so he wasn't just quiet. He didn't just shut his ass up. It says here, the camp of the Praetorian soldiers established by Tiberius. Now, this it specifically mentions the palace in Jerusalem, but it was basically the area where, as you can see, you had like almost like the barracks. You would have um the first definition, headquarters in a Roman camp, the tent of the commander in chief. So he's saying basically all of them have heard this, because they remember that there were guards that had to keep an eye on Paul. He was still a prisoner. Um, as it says, in all other places. So that word was spreading over there in Rome. Even though you would have people come to where he was to hear his word, it would still go out, right? They would take that back. They would tell others about it. So word was spreading. And many of the brethren in the Lord, waxing confident in my bonds, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. So he's saying, upon seeing the state that I'm in, it emboldened, other believers to speak more boldly, the word of the Lord without fear. Saying, look, hey, look, look at what happened to Paul for teaching it. If he was willing to go this far, shit, why can't we? Um, Verse 15, some indeed preach Hamashiach, even of envy and strife, and some of goodwill. And so what Paul is saying here is, like, you have some that are, and he heard of it, right, that were preaching Yahweh Shai, but not with, sincerity of heart, right? So you had some that, what he mentioned, right, envy and strife, you had some that were actually motivated because they were envious, right? They were motivated by jealousy of Paul's influence. And so they had that kind of, you had some that would preach with that spirit of like competition, you know, personal ambition, and they in their minds, they're thinking, well, Paul is in prison, so we can use this as an opportunity to advance ourselves, and try to get the preeminence and go to these different areas and set our mark on these areas as these master teachers. But as Paul says, let's continue verse 16, the one preach Hamashiach of contention, not sincerely, supposing to add affliction to my bonds. But back in 15, it mentioned in some of goodwill, right? So you had some, the sincere believers that preached because they actually loved Yahweh Shai and they loved Paul. And they were like, well, he mentioned, right, that they were more emboldened to speak the word without fear. And they knew, okay, well, he's confined right now, but that should not stop the word from spreading. So Yahweh Shai was being taught either way. But as Paul is saying, verse 16, the one preach Hamashiach of contention, not sincerely, supposing to add affliction to my bonds. Let's go into that word contention. So it says here, electioneering or intriguing for office. Okay. Apparently in the New Testament, a courting distinction, a desire to put one's self forward, a partisan and factious spirit which does not disdain low arts. Now, let's look up the word here, electioneering. It is basically along the lines of what I described earlier. But let's look this up here. Electioneering. Active and energetic participation in the activities of an election campaign. Now, what's the point of that? So you can be selected for something, right? So when it says here that they were preaching for contention's sake, trying to get the preeminence, trying to, you know, um, put themselves out there, not because they were sincerely trying to preach the word of the Lord, but as he says, supposing to add affliction to my bonds. So what's an example, right? For example, you may have somebody preaching with the mindset thinking that, if we can outshine Paul, right? He's in prison now. He was all here going over here, going over here. He thinks he's some hot shot. Let us go preach, and if we can outshine him while he's in prison, that's gonna trouble him, right? It's gonna hurt his ego because now we're taking over. Like that kind of spirit. You have some people that are like that, right? You have some people like we've seen that even in today's day and age. You have some that will, um, for example, if you take the apostles of Great Millstone, you have some that will leave and they'll try to um, seek preeminence. They'll try to gain as much of a following as they can to then position themselves as like, hey, we um, we broke off from them, but look at what we're doing. Look at how much better what we're doing is than what they're doing. Okay. Verse 17, but the other of love, knowing that I am set for the defense of the gospel. See, so the others, those that are preaching with a sincere heart, they preach it out of love, understanding what the Apostle Paul's job and role was in the sense of the defense for the gospel. What then? Notwithstanding, every way, whether in pretense, meaning whether they're teaching with pretense is like a false um a false story, right? Like, for example, it's not necessarily that they're teaching a lie, but they're reasoning for teaching it. They're making it look like they're teaching it out of sincerity, but it's really for they have ulterior motives. Or in truth, or if they're actually sincerely teaching it out of truth, Hamashiach is preached, and I therein do rejoice, yea, and will rejoice. So as long as the Yahushua is being preached, I'm glad. For I know that this shall turn to my salvation through your prayer. So it'll all work out to the benefit of me through your prayer and the supply of the spirit of Hamashiach Yahushai. So as long as you're praying for me and I have the spirit of the Lord with me, everything is going to work out fine. According to my earnest expectation and my hope that I in nothing, or Slaki, that in nothing I shall be ashamed, but that with all boldness as always, so now also Hamashiach shall be magnified in my body, whether it be by life or by death. So it says here in the NLT, for I fully expect and hope that I will never be ashamed, but that I will continue to be bold for Hamashiach as I have been in the past. And I trust that my life will bring honor to Hamashiach whether I live or die. For to me, to live is Hamashiach, and to die is gain. So if whether he's alive, right? If he's alive, he's living to honor the Lord, to serve the Lord. But if he dies, it's gain, because at the end of the day, he would be at peace, but he would also have completed his job. So either way it goes, while he's still alive, he's serving the Lord. If he dies, well, hey, that's still a plus for him. But if I live in the flesh, this is the fruit of my labor. Yet what I shall choose, I wot not. He says here, but if I live, I can do more NLT, I can do more fruitful work for Hamashiach. So I really don't know which is better. Let's read the previous verse as well. Well, it's kind of like the same thing, but it says here, for to me, living means living for Hamashiach, and dying is even better. But if I live, I can do more fruitful work for Hamashiach. So I really don't know which is better. Verse 23, for I am in a strait, which is a difficult position betwixt two. It's like being torn between two, having a desire to depart and to be with Hamashiach, that is to die, to go to the spirit world and join the Lord, which is far better. Nevertheless, to abide in the flesh is more needful for you. So he's saying, nevertheless, while I'm here, it's more beneficial for you. And having this confidence, I know that I shall abide and continue with you all for your furtherance and joy of faith. So basically he's saying that I have faith. Like I'm confident that the Lord is going to preserve me here a bit longer to continue with you all in the flesh, to further your faith and your joy, that your rejoicing may be more abundant in Yahushua Hamashiach for me by my coming to you again. So Paul believed in the spirit that he would be released and he would be able to go and see them again. And as it says, their joy may be that much more abundant in Yahushua upon seeing Paul again. Only let your conversation be as it becometh the gospel of Hamashiach, right? So let your way of life, be what is becoming, all right, of what the gospel teaches, what the gospel preaches, what you're supposed to, the kind of life you're supposed to live, all right, as per the gospel of Yahushua. That whether I come to see you, or whether I come and see you, or else be absent, I may hear of your affairs, that ye stand fast in one spirit and one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel. So he's saying, live righteously, so that whether I'm there or whether I'm absent, I can hear that you're living the good life, right? You're standing fast in one spirit, you're staying strong, you're staying unified, you're fighting for the faith. And in nothing terrified by your adversaries, which is to them an evident token of perdition. So don't be afraid of those that oppose you. Okay, and your boldness will be a token, a sign to them of their destruction, but to you of salvation and that of God. See, because you standing firm in your faith, it's the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, that is keeping you bold, which means you're on the right path to salvation. But to them, it is a clear sign that they are opposing that salvation and warranting unto themselves perdition or destruction. For unto you it is given in the behalf of Hamashiach not only to believe on him, but also to suffer for his sake. So Paul is saying that, yes, as part of this gospel, as it's giving you of the Lord, it's not just the faith and believing on him, but you also have to suffer for his sake, having the same conflict which ye saw in me, and now here to be in me. So the same kind of afflictions that you witnessed me go through, and now that you're hearing of, with me being in bonds here in Rome, it's a part of serving the Lord. So expect that you will also go through these kinds of sufferings. Doesn't have to be exactly like Paul's going through, but you would have to suffer for Yahweh's sake. And that brings us to the end of the book of Philippians, the first chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak, Wadash. And until next time, Shalom.